some of you were here last week. If anyone is new, Atsuki Oshiryu, I'm sorry, I don't mean to mispronounce your name. That's not an easy one for me. I'd love to get an introduction from Atsuki Oshiryu. If you weren't here last week, of course. Are you able to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Hi, my name is Atsuki. I'm majoring in computer science.
Excellent. And from where are you coming today?
From Tempe. I live in Tempe.
Excellent. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
We're here. And Jennifer, you were here last week?
I was not here last week.
Well, thank you for joining. Jennifer, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Jennifer, and I'm a business student. I currently live in Chandler, Arizona.
That's a really nice town. The downtown there is incredibly charming. They did a great job of manicuring that just right. Thank you for joining us. I think everyone else was here last week. Dan, I like your avatar. Were you here last week?
I was, yes, sir.
Beautiful. Okay. We'll jump into it to make it concise and let everyone get back to their Wednesday night. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to jump into some of the common themes we've talked about, which is 7 C's, right? And creating value is probably the most important after cash, right? Because without value, there is no cash. It feels like everything we've done to date is a predicate to creating value, i.e., what are all the ways you can think about the market leading up to creating value? Absent value, there is no cash. Cash being the most important, right? Especially for those of you who have dreams of being an entrepreneur. I've been in these small companies in which, hiring 2 more people could potentially put you in a position where you can't make payroll if 2 of your customers don't pay on time, right? Like, entrepreneurship sounds amazing until you start thinking and seeing the world through those eyes, right? If you get 40 customers, there's a chance a handful of them won't pay on time, but you need 2 more employees to service those 40, and then you can't make payroll. So cash is always the most important to keep the business afloat. But creating value is the predicate, right? I think everything we've talked about today, or excuse me, the last 4 or 5 weeks has led up to that. Before we jump into the examples, though, we're going to talk about the words to avoid and the words to use. Why is this important? We've talked about this in every session. I think we've all seen the great movies, the television shows, especially those, Law and Order and other police and courtroom procedurals in which you see a detective or a prosecutor or a defense attorney, put together the exact right monologue to drive home the point and win the case. The power of words is undeniable, right? It's what drives business. It's what drives relationships. It's what drives the world forward. In this case, the word not to use is objection, which sounds kind of obvious, but it's not, because in the world of business, we often frame things in terms of how do we overcome the customer's objection, right? So when you're selling almost anything, the prospect will have objections, i.e., it's too expensive, it'll take too long to work, it'll be too complicated, I don't know how long it'll last, it'll cost too much to maintain, it'll cost too much to replace, it'll cost too much to train my team. There'll be objections to whatever you implement or whatever you're trying to sell. And a common phrasing in the sales and marketing world is, how do we overcome objections? However, when you call something an objection, you lend credence to the idea that there's reasons people shouldn't buy it. So in the world of sales and marketing, we find ways to soften that language and make it feel less harsh and lend less credibility to the idea that it is an objection, i.e., area of concern, a challenge, or my favorite yet, a hurdle or a minor hurdle. This hopefully seems very obvious, but I tell you, I've been in a million sales calls and demonstrations when the salesperson will say, I understand your objection, however, or a common objection is, and trying to get in front of that, or you may object to our pricing, however, the value is. So this word object or objection is just harsh and it just sounds negative and it brings negative energy to a conversation. So again, this is one of those words that when you're writing emails, when you're in conversation, pause when you write objection. Force yourself to move away from it and find softer ways to say the same thing. Okay, on to the next. So we've talked a lot about my business experience working with a couple of different companies. The first, we got some more people joining. I just heard the ping. I wasn't sharing my screen. You guys got to tell me this. I'm sorry. Did someone try to tell me I didn't see it? Okay, everyone can see my screen now? Yes, okay. I apologize. Luckily, I didn't show too much. It was just objection versus area of concern, challenges, minor hurdle. I hope you all get the point. Make sure everyone's in the class that needs to be in. Yep, we're all here. So again, going back to this idea of creating value. So in the abstract, we know that food waste is bad, right? In the abstract, we know that throwing food away, putting too much food on our plate and throwing it away, or getting too much food from the grocery store and having the produce go bad in our fridge or freezer, which almost all of us are guilty of, is bad. When you tie this to a business outcome, it's incredibly powerful, right? In the United States, the restaurant industry loses an estimated $25 billion annually. And all you have to do when you're selling temperature monitoring is ask your prospect, how often has your fridge or freezer died and you've lost food? You'd be amazed, just like our furnaces die and our air conditioner dies and our cars die, fridges and freezers die. We just don't think about it a lot because most of us don't have that much experience with it, but it causes tremendous loss of revenue and profitability to these restaurants. So by creating a product and selling a product and servicing a product well, you create tremendous value, which then people are willing to pay for. But the key here is really not keeping this in the abstract. This estimate here I really like. It says the average American home, wastes 1,900 hours a year on average in food waste. This number I like a lot worse, or I don't like as much, this 25 billion or 620 million in profit adoption by preventing food waste. What you really want to do when you're selling a product like this or any product is get down to the individual personal level. No one wants to hear about something costing 25 billion because that feels like stars in the sky or grains of sand on the beach. You want to ask someone, how often has your freezer died? And when it died, how much food did you lose? And how many days was your restaurant closed, or were you unable to serve your full menu? Right? Drive home the value, not just the fact that you're selling temperature monitoring that will send someone an alert, but make it feel personal and remind people of the pain they felt when these things happened. A great example of this, as I think about it, is I was a police reporter at a newspaper early in my career, and I would go to the police station in Knoxville, Tennessee, and read through the police reports to see if there was anything we missed from the police scanner that was a serious crime. And invariably, there were things that happened at 3 a.m. or on a Sunday at 7 a.m. when nobody was working that were serious crimes, that were homicides or rapes or serious house fires or crazy car accidents or fraud investigations. And when I was at the police station, There was one other person who was there with me several times a week, and he was the sales rep from ADT Home Security. And he would get the reports of all the houses that had been burglarized, and then he would go to those houses, knock on the door, and sell them a security system. After, I don't know, about a year in the job, I actually walked in the office at the same time as this guy, and he was just a couple years older than me, probably early 30s at the time when I met him. And it was obviously a brilliant move, right? He knew exactly when the people had this acute problem, their home had just been broken into, their sense of security and trust in their community had been violated, and he cleaned up going to sell them home security systems, because at that point in time, the value of what he was selling was through the roof. He made it extremely personal by getting the police reports of whose house has been broken into. I thought it was just a brilliant sales tactic for a young person to take part in selling home security systems versus just calling everybody, knowing that most people haven't had their houses broken into. So you have to make it personal to drive home value. The other company that I've talked a lot about is the company I work for now, Vestige. We've talked a lot about the cameras that go in commercial vehicles that capture everything going on around them. When you are driving down the highway, be aware that most semi-trucks have cameras all over them that are capturing everything going on the road. And state authorities have cameras on all the overpasses capturing license plates and putting them in a giant database telling the government where all the vehicles are on all the roads all the time. And then they share that information with tow truck companies. So when your car gets repoed, they know exactly where to find it and where the car has been most recently. Tow truck companies buy these same cameras and drive around all of our neighborhoods every single night and scan all of our license plates to know where all of our cars are every single day. They do this to solve a minute problem of 2 or 3% of cars that go into default and need to be repossessed, recovered. It is amazing how many cameras are out there on the streets. And why are they out there? Because attorneys and litigators and authorities are always looking to authorities, not so much, but certainly attorneys and litigators are looking to take advantage of people who get involved in accidents. There's a term in that world, in the litigation world of automotive accidents, called nuclear verdicts. And that's a verdict in which the defendant pays more than $10 million in damages for a car accident. Oftentimes it's a fatal accident. And obviously, if someone killed my wife and daughter in a car accident, $10 million isn't enough, right? Or if it's your parents, or if it's your brother, your sister, there's no amount of money. That being said, right, most of these claims, just 10, 15 years ago, were between $1 and $3 million for the death of a loved one. Again, I'm not here to say what the right dollar number is for the loss of a loved one. There's no dollar value we can put on that, of course. Immeasurable pain and suffering you suffer through the rest of your life when you lose someone. However, if it truly was an accident, if there was no malice involved, that is the cost of living in a civilized society. These tragic accidents happen. Should it bankrupt a business? Should it take a business that's doing everything else right, playing by all the rules, they have a bona fide accident, and a nuclear verdict comes out that takes 10, 20, $30 million to settle, right? So what we do is show examples like this, right? This is a family-run trucking company, which most trucking companies are. Most trucking companies that deliver all of our food and beverages and the goods that we rely on every single day are delivered via trucks. And most of those trucking companies own less than 10 trucks. The majority of the market is served by mom and pop businesses, and they're being destroyed because you can see that statistic there. From 2010 to 2018, the average size of verdicts in trucking industries rose from 2.3 million to 22 million. Right? So you can imagine you're a mom and pop business. You have 7 semi trucks that run goods from Phoenix to Flagstaff. or from Phoenix to San Diego, or from Tucson to Albuquerque, right? There's so many of these businesses out there that by and large are doing the right thing every single day to run their business. They're getting their driver certified, they're playing by the rules, they're making sure their drivers are trained, all the things you'd expect from a responsible business. They make one mistake and it's a $23 million judgment that destroys these family-run businesses that are often multi-generational, right? Grandpa started it when he got back from World War II or Vietnam or Korea, or when he was an immigrant to this country, he got into trucking, passed it down to the son and the grandson or granddaughter. And these are, largely family-run businesses that are being destroyed. So our job at Vestige is to not sell a camera. It's to sell the fact that we're saving family businesses from being destroyed. Because sometimes these accidents can be mitigated, the damages, if the video evidence shows the driver didn't behave with wanton disregard for public safety. So your job as you become an entrepreneur isn't just to sell a camera or a piece of software or temperature monitoring. Your job is to find these anecdotes that drive home the value to the individual person you're selling to. And believe me, this is harder than it looks, right? Hopefully I'm making it look easy because I've done this for 20 years, but I've been in a lot of businesses where people just come in and say, we're selling you cameras. You can see everything that goes on the road, and not driving home that, no, we're not selling a camera. We're selling Mr. Clifton here the ability to protect his business from unscrupulous lawyers who will take one innocent accident and turn it into the destruction of a 50-year-old family business. That is called creating value. And that's what we do at Vestige, what we do at SonicU, what you're meant to do with whatever your entrepreneurial idea is to dig deep into the emotions and the fears of your clients of what goes wrong or what could possibly go right? How their life could be improved with your product, and tap into that to create value. When value is created, cash follows. Okay, again, thank you all for joining. I hope these are valuable. I want to leave you again with the idea of words to avoid and words to adopt. Objection is one of the ones that I think is fairly easy from a just pragmatic, straightforward, just the way it sounds. It's kind of just a harsh sounding word, but you'd be surprised when you get out there in the real world how many people are using this word. I've gotten really good at this. At everything to me is a challenge that we overcome together. Everything to me is a hurdle that we can work through. Everything to me is a potential obstacle that we should find a way to work around, right? Even obstacle might be a bit too hard, but avoid like crazy the word objection when you're talking to your prospect, and when your salespeople are out overcoming these things, they should find new ways to address your clients' and prospects' concerns. Because concerns are valid and concerns can be worked, but concerns is such a more neutral, flat word that allows your client to know they're actually being heard. You're not trying to disregard or not take seriously the concern they have, but it's not rising to the level of objecting to them buying your product. So I hope this makes sense. I know we've gone through I versus you, think versus feel, meeting versus conversation, which is amazing, but we all want to have conversations because they're two-way streets. We don't want to have meetings because we're largely just talked at. I hope you adopt all of these and really, and more than anything, gang, I hope these words we're putting out there force you to really think about the way you apply language in emails, in your verbal conversations, and especially in your journey to value creation, because the right turn of phrase at the right time, consistently applied, can do amazing things for creating value and creating opportunity for you and your business. Okay, so 20 minutes in, I hope that was helpful. Any questions from anybody before I'll let you get back to sweltering in Phoenix? Does not sound like it. Miriam, thank you for joining. I appreciate the comments. Really enjoy everyone's company. Have a great week, and we will see you next week at it again. Take care, everybody.